All right, so what is it, 6:05? We'll convene Sustainability Committee. Let's start with introductions. We're pleased to welcome Jess LeClaire. Jess, did you present sort of via Zoom to this group already before, right?
I did.
Okay.
Yep, so that was maybe back in September. We were talking about some proposed updates to the Sustainable CT program, and now we'll share a bit of, what came to be.
Yep. And we've had some personnel changes here, so I don't know, Joe and Jennifer, you maybe weren't on the board at that point. So, so good to revisit. So why don't we quickly introduce ourselves so Jess knows sort of what department or what discipline we come from. Jess, you know me, I'm actually more coming from the Clean Energy Task Force, but as of the last meeting here, I'm chair of this committee as well. So, folks want to just maybe introduce yourself briefly and what your sort of, what your focus is on this committee. Bob?
Yes, I'm Bob Crowther. I'm the liaison from the Economic Development Commission to this commission.
And Joe?
Yes, I'm Joe Daly. I'm on the recycling committee. I think I've been on there about 2 years, and so I'm on the sustainability committee here to help out with sections, I think it's 9.3 and 9.4 of the strategic material resources section.
Great. And Jen, are you able to introduce yourself?
Yes, I am, sorry, I'm Jennifer Batchelor, and I'm on the Board of Education in Simsbury.
Great, great. All right, let me pull up the agenda. And I don't know if anybody tried any of these links. I think the first one does not work, but I tried to include some links here at the bottom to a couple of documents that will, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get that to work because they're on a shared Google Drive. But anyway, I don't think really we had any submitted questions so for public audience. So we'll move on. And let's approve the minutes of the last meeting, which Joe did. I think did a great job. I think this group used to sort of read the minutes, and I would say let's all try to have reviewed them before the meeting, and so we don't need to read them. Did anybody have any comments on the minutes?
No, I thought Joe did a good job. I'll make a motion to approve.
Yeah, let me make one. I mean, I agree, Joe did fantastic. I got one typo on the 6th bullet here under Sherry Callanan here. Any loose ends?
Oh,
that's
Points off.
I think they were fantastic though. They really to the point, but a lot of information in there. So thank you, Joe.
Yep.
So Bob, why don't you make your motion now?
okay. So a motion to approve the minutes from the March meeting.
All right, I'll second that. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Great. Thanks again, Joe.
Yep.
So next up is Jess, and I'll stop sharing. And Jess, maybe reintroduce yourself to the group, and I think the focus tonight is the how the whole action list has changed. Although having said that, we do have some new members who don't know the old action list that well. So just kind of a good for us. And just so you know, we are we got certified in 2019. So our plan is to submit in April of next year.
Okay, wonderful.
For our recertification. So,
Well, that's great to hear. So my name is Jess LeClaire, and I'm with the Institute for Sustainable Energy at Eastern Connecticut State University, and we oversee the sort of day-to-day operations of Sustainable CT. So Mark asked me here tonight first to give you a status update of where your 2019 application sits within the current program requirements, which is a little bit more work than we had time for. But I just want to throw out this point that we will have summer fellows coming on board the first week of June, and there'll be 2 at your COG at the Capital Region Council of Governments. And they seem wonderful. We just hired them. They'll be starting up soon. They're finishing up their academic years. And that task would be great for them to take a look at your application from 2019 and see how it meshes with the current requirements. Now, know that if you're hoping to get certified in 2022, there might be some small adjustments to actions, but we try to adjust actions so that we make them more flexible and they have more options. We don't usually try to pull the rug out from underneath you unless the action is grotesquely ill-written. But it seems like over time, we're just sort of making smaller and smaller refinements to the actions based on what feedback we're getting from communities. But anyways, we can use tonight as sort of an informal opportunity. If you have any questions about Sustainable CT generally, I'm happy to answer them. But from the 10,000 foot view, back in September, with some of the people, I see some familiar faces and names. We piloted some of the proposed 2021 updates with your town, and we're really grateful for your feedback. And we piloted those updates with several different communities and try to get as many communities to share thoughts on those changes as possible. And we did release some final changes to Sustainable CT that I would like to show you. If I have screen share potential.
I think I have to give you permission.
No problem. I always like to use the website just in case you want to refer back to what we talked about, you'll know where to find it. And the website it's got a lot on there. So sometimes having someone navigate for you is helpful.
It does. It has a lot on there. It's really.
Keep trying now and see if it works. I think I got you going.
Sure. Oh yeah, we're good.
Okay.
So I've got a bunch of pages pulled up. So first and foremost, if you're comparing your 2019 application to your 2022 application, let me just start at the beginning from the homepage. Looking at the actions themselves, actions down here, one of the biggest changes is that we renumbered all of the actions in the program. So we moved our equity action, which was last, to first, which made everything change. We also added actions along the way, and you got to see a preview of some of those new actions back in September. So that's one thing that we're asking towns as they undergo the recertification process to be cognizant of, that for the most part, the action descriptions, the ask of it, the requirements have not changed, but the numbering is going to be a lot different for all of them. So keep that in mind. Hopefully you don't pull your hair out. We do have like a translation guide. So if you were 2.1, now it's 3.1, and we have a guidance document that sort of lays that out for you, but you might get the handle of it pretty quickly as you work through the action descriptions. So the number changes are new. We added, again, several new actions. So you can see here's just 2 of them, action 1.2, action 1.3. There's a pollinator pathway action. There's a dark skies action. There's more housing actions. And these aren't necessarily, they're not required, but there's just more opportunity. So hopefully, having gone through the process in 2019, in that phase, you would have seen all of the actions. Now there's some new, hopefully exciting work or potential work for you as a community, and maybe it aligns with some of the things that you've got going on. So I won't go through each one of them, but we do have some webinars that showcase the new actions in greater detail. If you do want to go into them, you're welcome to watch those webinars, or we can discuss them tonight. Let's see here. Another big change that we discussed back in September was the credit for past action. So if you remember, if you were a part of the application process in 2019, you might recall that every single action in the program had a different, what we call look back period. So it could be that if you've done a plan of conservation and development 10 years ago, it still can get credit. And maybe if you had a sustainability event 3 years ago, that doesn't get credit. And it was all different. And it was, what we were hearing was that it was confusing. Towns were, sometimes just shy of whatever the look back period was. And that was a frustrating occurrence for communities. So what we decided to do was to change the look back period, the credit for past action, so that there's really two options. It's something that's new credit, or it's got rolling credit. And what that means is something new has been done within the past 3 years from January 1st of the year you're seeking certification. So if you're seeking certification in 2022, 3 years prior to January 1, 2022. So that's anything, new, you don't have to, it's new, you get credit for it. That's great. Anything older than that would be considered potentially eligible for rolling credit. So actions are eligible for new and or rolling credit. So if you'll see, and I can show you in an action description, I will show you one. I'm going to flip. Can you see my screens that are changing back and forth?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So you'll see here, I'll just pick optimize for equity. Every action description has a new component in here where we say the time frame for credit. And you can see here for the optimize for equity, it's eligible for new action credit. So it has to be new, it's not rolling. So that means the work has to have been done within the past 3 years. And we also have this time frame for credit guidance document that is the same document that's within each one of these different action descriptions. So that document, and I'll flip screens and hopefully it toggles with me, is right here. So for the rolling credit, anything older than 3 years, you'll just have to prove that there's still an ongoing impact. And depending on what type of action it is, we tell you what that proof looks like. So we distinguish what the rolling credit is in each action. So it could be, and I'm just going to scroll down here. There's lots you could read if you wanted to, but we've got these different action types. So you would see in that section of the action that I showed you, it would say this action is eligible for rolling credit under action type implementation projects, for instance. And this is what you would submit for rolling credit. Well, it's actually not eligible for rolling credit. So that was a great one for me to pick. But let's say it was this outreach, education, programs, campaigns, funding, blah, blah, blah. It would tell you what you would need to submit to show that there's still ongoing impact from that particular activity. And I hope that makes sense. I've never actually described the rolling impact out loud. So that's sort of the gist of it. If it's been done in the past 3 years, you're good, no questions asked. If it's older than 3 years, it's possible it's not eligible for credit anymore. And if it is eligible for credit, we just need to show that there's still something happening with it. Like, let's say it's a plan. Well, we're still using that plan. We've used it in our Planning and Zoning Commission meeting 2 days ago, and it's still generating impact in our town. So that's one of the big changes in the program, is that credit for past action. And I'll pause there. Any questions?
Where is that this document we're looking at? Is that on the website?
Yes. So this is actually, as you go through the actions, this will become very tedious because you will see in every single action description in every single time frame for credit.
Okay.
So we wanted to make sure you wouldn't miss it. So it's in everything. So yeah, some things are eligible only for new action credit and some are eligible for both. And just a little cheat sheet guide for the time frame for credit. If you scroll down to the end of the guide, these are the actions that you can only get credit for one time. And then you need to move on to some new elements. So that's the time frame for credit. A little caveat for towns that are recertifying, you'll be recertifying in the year, if you're going for it next year, that's your recertification year. So at the end of 2022, you will no longer be certified under your 2019 application package. So everything that you do is everything that you got credit for in 2019 is now, it's either, it's not eligible for new credit. I hope that makes sense. So it's all rolling or not eligible for credit. So that's something that you'll want to scroll through and make sure you have the documentation to show that there's still ongoing impact from whatever it is that you did get credit for in 2019.
So we're applying in 2022. So for new actions, as long as they were done after January 2019, then they might qualify, right?
In the year, so I can get clarification on that for you, but how we've structured it is that if it's your recertification year, you're up after that year. So this is your recertification year. Everything sort of gets wiped. It's no longer new. It's all going to be considered rolling. And that's just so that communities aren't just sort of hitting the submit button again without having to do anything new, if that makes sense.
So that's interesting. So because it's our recertification year, basically none of the items that we did that are under this new would count anymore.
They could count, you just might have to document how you're still using those elements. So let's say it was your plan of conservation and development and you got a lot of points for that, and that's still your plan, you don't have to redo it. It's, let's just say it's 4 years old. You would just say like that, this plan of conservation and development is something we're still using. Actually, I'll just show you what you would submit.
But they can't get credit as new.
Right, you'd have to do just one extra element. So it would be under here, website, maps, inventories, blah, 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 plans, date of review of the materials, who reviewed it, and if there aren't any updates, that's okay. And if it was updated, let us know.
So is it?
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, is a new item weighted more, for the points than a rolling item?
Nope, no. So the points are set in each action, and you would know what to expect, and whether it's something that's rolling or new, it's the same amount of points.
Oh, okay.
And we made this change to believe it or not, to add more opportunity for towns to show, really just so you don't have to reinvent the wheel every couple of years. If this is again a plan or an inventory and no changes need to be made, this is still status quo in town, and you're actively using those documents in your town governing, there's no need to redo it. We had some dates that communities had felt were sort of arbitrary, but that was still how they did business. So that's great. Just tell us that you're still using it and show us that this is still relevant and current. And on the reverse, plans are easy to pick on. You could do a plan and it's great and wonderful, and then you haven't looked at it in 5 years. So it's not really generating any lasting impact in town. If it's not being used, people don't know about it, and maybe even people can't find it on the website or in the shared drive of the various departments. So this is really just to showcase, the ongoing work of the town. And the intent is to make life easier. And I hope that's the case. And as I'm describing it, it's probably a little bit confusing. But as you go through, I hope that it makes sense. But if you have any questions or have specifics, like this particular action, would it still count? Please feel free to reach out to me.
Well, I don't know if we have time, but one of the things maybe, once you go through sort of all the stuff you wanted to cover, and if we have any time, I've got our list of old actions, and as you say, it's way beyond the scope of us to go through the whole thing, but we might pick one or two and just kind of see how we might think about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can look at your certification report to do that too. So the other thing I wanted to just touch on was the submission page. And I know that in Simsbury, you had mentioned that the submission page was too much. We actually, we did add a little bit more. So this was not, really, it was just to help us better understand the material that was coming through. So I wanted to just show you a submission page. As you know, all submission pages look the same. So you would see the drop down, the points, some of the boxes that are similar now. We've got the submission information. That's not new. Supporting documents where you upload your files. That's not new. This time frame for credit, this is a new box where you tell us, again, if it's rolling credit or new, and then whatever materials you're referencing to showcase that it's rolling, whatever it is, just to point it out for us. The partners box has always been there. We're flagging it as more important and asking that you do complete it, even if there aren't any partners, just to let us know. And then the last, this is again optional, but the last one is just a quick check box to help us understand if towns are doing anything because of sustainable CT or if it's all planned work within your community. It would be really helpful for us to know what role the program had in the work that you're doing or not. And that's fine too. So this is just a quickie. But I just wanted to show you that there are a couple more boxes, and I know that this was something that you were voting for it to go the other way. So I wanted to flag that if you had any questions or concerns. Let's see. And that's actually it for the program updates. I just wanted to show one last thing, some additional resources. Really, we sort of streamlined bits and components of the website. So homepage, support for your town. This support for your town tab we reconfigured, so hopefully it's a little bit easier to utilize. So you'll see basically everything you might need to know. And these resources are helpful. These would have all of the documents. If you don't want to go through the actions, you could just find them here. And we also have some video tutorials on various aspects of the program, and we'll be adding to this. But there is one, and the person who did it did a great job. She did a much better job than I did at explaining the credit for past action. So there's a 6-minute video here, right here, time frame for credit. That's very helpful to watch if you do have any questions. So I just wanted to showcase that. And then also on this support for your town would be the webinars. So we've got some recorded webinars that could be helpful, and we've been doing more and more. So if you like to watch recorded webinars, and that's a big if, because they are not always the most fun, there's a bunch here, and we've tried to bundle them so that you can find things fast. And some of these can even be used for some of the training requirements and some of the various actions. So that was a lot. I'll stop the share for right now. If you have any questions, we can dig into anything at all.
That was great. There is just a ton of information on that website. So it is helpful to, that I hadn't really focused on that support for our towns, but I think we'll probably want to watch that timeline for credit.
Yeah, I botched the explanation, but the person who did it did a great job. It's very clear.
Well, and did it sounded like you maybe needed to confirm that because it's our year of recertification that's a special treatment, or it's that this treatment of giving something credit as a new action is going to be different in the year that you're recertified?
It will be different. I need to confirm if it's something that you actually finish in 2019, if that changes the story.
Okay.
I don't know. But I love the questions, and this is the best part. We roll out changes, and then we get questions that help us know how we need to be more clear.
Because my guess is, we were doing a lot in 2019, sort of last minute stuff, submitting it. So my guess is there are some items that we effectively did in 2019 that, I guess it'd be good to nail down whether those could simply get credit as new, or whether we then need to go through the exercises of are they still relevant, and
I'll find that out for you and let you know, Mark.
I had one question, but it's kind of outside of the recertification.
Sure.
So I'm on the recycling committee, and we're kicking around a composting program.
Mhm.
Whether at the schools or on the public, more on just the residential side. And one comment I have is I'm relatively new to the Sustainable CT website,
Mhm.
but poking around in there, one thing I found that's really great is you can look at what other towns have submitted.
Yep.
And I just wanted to say I found that very useful.
I'm glad. I appreciate the feedback.
Yeah, I mean, there's a document from the Mansfield, uh, I think it's their recycling committee, who has created a compost program at the schools, and it was incredibly detailed. Down to schematics for building the bins. So that was real helpful. But the question I had was, when towns start to develop programs like this, when you talk about composting in a school, you have to get a lot of buy-in from a lot of different players, to make that happen. And it seems like you have to get all that buy-in first. And then is that when you start pursuing like grants from either Sustainable CT or the DEEP? Because I did see on the Sustainable CT website, there's a grants portal.
Yes. So we have the grants portal, which showcases funding from entities that are not Sustainable CT. So as we see things in our various email listservs, or people send them to us from DEEP or from whoever, we try to post them on that portal. So it's not extensive. We just sort of, whatever we catch, we try to put up there to be helpful to towns. We do also have our community match fund. And I'm not sure if you saw that. Did you, Joe?
No, I haven't yet.
Okay, well, I can screen share. Well, I'll just show it to you right now. Google Chrome. Let's see. Do you see this webinars page?
Yep.
So up here on the funding tab, you'll see the community match fund, and this is a little blurb about it. But basically, let's see, past and current projects. Oh, it's not this one.
So under that funding there, Sustainable CT offers the community match fund, but then it also alerts you to any other outside grants.
Yes. So the grants portal itself it's just funding that's not through us. So we don't really track it where we can't promise that you're eligible, but we just try to put it up there if it seems to relate to some of the actions.
Does that include the DEEP, or would I have to look at them separate?
So essentially, whatever we hear via happenstance, we put on the grants portal. So if it's not, I mean, there's lots of things that we miss that if you hear about through other ways, like I would sign up for all of the DEP listservs, just to kind of get that information in a timely way. Sometimes we hear about things and they're due pretty soon, which is not helpful because it takes a little while to prepare a grant. The Community Match Fund has funded composting projects, and I just wanted to pull it up, and I finally did find the right button. So on the funding tab up here, and I'm going to move your pictures. Funding, it pulls you to this, and then you go down to start a community match fund project. This is a one-to-one funding program where we use the Patronicity platform, and you can see the various projects that are currently underway and being crowdfunded for. So this is your question about community buy-in. These are projects that are funded by the community. So it's a one-to-one match. We'll match up to, I believe, $7,500 per project, I believe, but you need to talk to our community match fund organizer. A lot of that funding currently is being funded by a funder who's interested in energy efficiency and renewable energy projects. So there might be less eligibility for composting at present, but that might change as different funding streams to us to go to towns changes over time. But I would check that out and see some of the projects. But
Okay.
the community buy-in question is a good one. Sometimes funding gets people excited, and sometimes people excited gets funding. So it's sort of the chicken and the egg.
Mhm.
I'd probably try to do both at the same time. But the person from Mansfield who started that composting program is amazing. And I'd be happy to put you in touch with her over email if you wanted to kind of pick her brain on the process and how they put it all together.
Mhm.
If interested.
Okay, thanks.
If you just put your email address in the chat or send it to me, I'd be happy to make that connection.
Okay, I'll put it in the chat.
Okay.
Thanks.
Where is this funding portal? I'm familiar with the community match grants, but not with the portal, the funding.
So in that one, I'm going back to share my screen. We'll be back and forth here. So I believe the funding portal is tucked away in the support for your town. And then looking down here, it should be here, external grants.
Okay. Great.
And you can search, you can filter. I will say it's really hard to keep up with grants just because the deadlines, they come and go so quickly, and it's a really good grant, but it's due in 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks do you go and take it down, but there's just so many things that are happening. So it's something we've struggled with maintaining, but it's just so much, there's a lot of money out there. Part of the trouble is to find it and find it in a timely fashion. Oh, I've got your email now, Joe.
Okay, thanks.
Did anybody
No other
else
questions?
have any questions or things they want to cover with Jess?
Jess, I do have one question.
Mhm.
I'm not sure it's a question or just looking for some direction. I've been asked to work on the item number 12, the effective compassionate homelessness prevention.
Mhm.
And some of my initial research, reaching out to the Department of Social Services with them, trying to figure out, what do you do? What training have you done? What programs are you aware of? So the initial feedback I got back was they're aware of the educational programs from the state. And I think one or two have taken those. But there is no formal homelessness program in Simsbury.
Mhm.
Part of it is the fact that it may not be a major issue here, a major concern. I mean, I fully understand why this is in here as we look across the state of Connecticut. But for our town, our community, it may not be applicable or a major concern, if you will. So is our approach to addressing this particular section just to say, hey, here's what we do. We may not do everything that's being asked of us, but we do some of the things. So we'll get credit for those things we do and not worry about the other things.
Well, I think that's up to you. And this is something we do hear from towns. And Connecticut's kind of interesting in that a couple of cities bear the responsibility of providing services for the homeless population in the state. That does not mean that all the people who use those services are from that town. They're from all of our towns, but there's just no services to speak of, and nowhere to go and nothing to be had. So people move on to where they can get shelter, food, and other opportunities, which does usually happen to be the urban centers in the
Right.
state. So that's it is all of our problems or ways to address. So I think just sort of looking through the actions to see what might be some starting places that feel right. I'd also be happy to put you in touch with our partners at the Connecticut Coalition to End Homelessness, and they do this work every day. This is actually a new field for me, so I'm glad that we incorporated it. But I'm also just sort of like, I'm not sure how to start with it.
Yeah.
It's such a big nut to crack. So if you'd like, I'd be happy to put you in touch with a gentleman named Carl Asikassen. I always say his last name wrong. It's Carl A. He's great, and he does trainings. He's worked with communities across the state of all shapes and sizes, and he can probably help you prioritize which elements of that make the most sense for you, or
Okay.
might make the most sense.
That'd be helpful.
And now, Bob, may I collect your email address and I'll make that email intro?
So should I put it in a chat room too?
If you'd like, and if you'd like it to stay private, maybe you can email it to Mark and I can grab it that way.
Okay.
So this one's new, but you've got submissions now, right, for the April cycle. So maybe soon there'll be some examples of what other towns have done.
There could be. So we are right in the middle of our review process. So I'm not sure if any towns will get certified this go around. It's possible. It's maybe even likely. We've seen some good stuff that's happening. So if that's the case, there might be some work from action category 12 out there. At any rate, there likely will be by August. And just to point out, in 2021, category 12 is not required. It is every
okay.
year from there on out, but we wanted to give communities time to get to know that all those actions, because it was completely new. Prior to
Yep.
January 2021, no one in our sustainable CT family had ever seen those actions.
Yep. Okay. Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So you get my email address?
Oh yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
So let me just pull up something that I had done a little. Where is it here? Just a little prepping for. So this is the new list that I downloaded a couple of days ago, I think. So it's the updated list, and I added a column here for whether we submitted an action in that that action in 2019. And it's not to say that that's a given. We'll get those again, but it's like as a starting point, what did we do a couple of years ago? And then maybe next to it, we'll say, are we trying to get points again for that same action? Is that, what do we have to do? Do we have to show it's relevant? I mean, it sounds like, here's an example. Provide, and we've got the report. We can pull up the report somewhere in here. Is it here? Yeah, here's our submission report. So that one was 1-4. Let me just jump back here. Try not to make you seasick, but 1-4 is now 2-4. So we got 5-5-5. This is eligible for new action credit only.
Mm-hmm.
So we would need to show, if I understand, that this is still relevant. Maybe we need to dig a little deeper into what type of an action it is, right?
Well, no, if it's eligible for new to redo it. And things that are events that are 3 years old, older than 3 years rather, those have to be redone, just because an event that happened 3 years ago, people might not remember it. I mean, it's tough to remember what you had for breakfast. So in our eyes, the impact of that event has worn off and it's time to do it again.
Got it. Okay. And then this next one is outreach, education programs, campaigns, recognition. So that one is new or rolling. So
Yep.
that one, if it's something we're still using, and we can look what it was.
Yep. So for that, if it's eligible for rolling, then you would go to that guidance document and look for that particular bucket. And what did it say there? You flipped the screen, so I missed what it said.
Here.
Yep. So these are long named buckets, but if you think of them that way, so it's the bucket here would be outreach education programs There we go. Campaigns. Oh, it's getting bigger and moving around. Recognition, designation. So that's that bucket. We should have just called it like B or A or something like that. But we tried to lump them all together. So then you would go to the guidance document and look up this bucket, and it would show you what to submit to show that it's still generating impact.
Got it. Okay. Okay, so the new action credit only, those we're gonna have to redo.
Yep.
And the new or rolling, we're gonna have to sort of look at what for that action type needs to be submitted.
Exactly. And I'll get back to you on if things were completed in 2019, if they have to be redone. I'm leaning towards they probably will, just for clarification, just so that it's an even playing field for everyone and we're not, I mean, the goal of this was that it's less confusing. So if we're adding this caveat that if you did it in the year you got certified, then it still can count, that seems like that would stray away from our ease of use goal. But perhaps, so I will find out, but yes, you're going to have to look through those things, and some things might have to be redone, but it's great that you're looking at this now and figuring out the game plan of how you want to move forward, because the year is still pretty young. And again, there'll be the fellows coming online that can help with anything and everything that you've got going on this summer.
Yeah, we had a fellow 3 years ago, and it was very, very helpful. But
Mhm.
yeah, I thought I kind of want to start here just to see what are we starting at? Are there any points that we think we can, are still relevant? There were a couple that I couldn't find, and I don't want to take us too far down in the weeds, but here's an example of what did my comment? Let me move this thing here. What did my comment say here? So apparently this action appears to have changed land use and zoning regulations 411. What we did appears to be gone.
Yes,
Is that true? So
that is true. So there's the look back, the credit for past action, look back period, caveat, and there's also the action description itself. So the two things to check on your existing application would be I would say first and foremost, does what I submit still meet the requirements of the action? This is one where there actually was a bigger change, and most others, they were smaller changes. And if it does still fit the action requirements, does it fit the look back period? Or what do I need to show that it's still generating ongoing impact? So there are two elements to check, which is why, Mark, when you asked to go through your whole application, I thought, oh no, I can't do that within a week.
sorry, I didn't realize what I was asking. And here's another 5.3. It looks like community gardens are gone.
Nope, they got moved. So we actually just pulled that out and made it a bit bigger of an action. So there's more points you can get. But it was just such it really was a popular community match fund project. And everyone was lots of towns were honing in on that. We decided to make it its own action.
So where's that now?
So that is, I'm still learning all the actions. In my glory days, I could tell you every action. But let's see, it's action. Oh boy.
I probably could have looked here in the transition guide, maybe, right?
It would be there too. Where would we have hid that thing? Oh, do we have a food? This is like really bad. I should know these better. Optimal health and wellness is where we've had it. And it's action 10.4, develop and promote community growing spaces. Oh, it actually is just the garden too, but it's 15 points. So where it was in the prior action, it was just, I don't know if it was 15 points in that, but we decided to call it out because a lot of towns were doing it. And with COVID, it seemed that it's becoming pretty popular, especially giving gardens and giving people access to fresh, healthy, local food.
All right. Well, that was really helpful. I mean, I think we could spend hours and hours and hours going through each one, but I think you've helped me, and I think helped us to sort of to know how to think about this and how to. So I think maybe maybe at our next meeting, and I think each of us as we're looking at what actions we might want to be doing, I'll make sure you know where to get to that Google sheet so you can see for something we did before, start to think through, is it new or new enrolling? And if it's rolling, then what type of action is it? What would we have to demonstrate? And my guess is we're going to generate more questions and answers, but at least we can kind of start to think this through and then bombard our fellow when he or she comes in June.
You'll have 2 fellows and they are awesome. So please give them as much work. This actually would be a really useful exercise for them to learn about the actions and what towns are doing. It's easy to read things, but it's always helpful when you're reading them with a purpose to actually understand what the content is.
The other thought that I had when I was listening to Abe Hildig Soler, who he manages the community match grant program. He was on this Green Bank program on, and it just struck me because I've heard him several times, but to hear him go through this whole concept of this matching grant program, and particularly in the context of comparing it to other funding mechanisms, it really is pretty innovative what is being done here. And it just made me think, let's keep our eyes and ears out and think about what other groups in town could benefit from this. The idea of, let's say you've got a group that wants to build a pollinator garden, or there was something, a Facebook notice came by about a bicycle friendly group. And let's reach out to all these groups and say, the basic idea behind these community match grants is, let's say you want to do a project and it's going to cost $10,000 or $5,000. The first half you have to raise yourself, and you do that through this crowdfunding. So, and you do this, you've got this patronicity platform. So if you got enough people who are willing to pitch in 25, 50, $100, and you can get a first couple thousand, then as long as it fits the criteria, Sustainable CT will match that. And so for a lot of groups wanting to do little things around town but have very little money, knowing that they could double their money for what they could raise is potentially really interesting for them. So hopefully we're not just kind of redoing stuff that we did or checking boxes, but we're actually finding new groups to sort of bring into this and make them aware of of this opportunity.
Yeah, and it's a great way to expand your group's network and reach. And also you can have as many projects going in town as there are projects, as long as the project lead is different. So it's cool. It's a way to energize the base. And Joe, to your question about buy-in and community support, when people start to see things on the ground that they want, they gave $5, $10, $15, $100, that can be kind of cool. And the intent is that these things happen fast, that they're up and built in a couple months or whatever the outcome is, that's generated quickly.
Is it still the case that only one project in town can be funding at a time?
No, it was unless Abe spoke differently. Did Abe say that only one can be in a town?
I thought it used to be that way, that you could have multiple things in town, but only one group could be doing in the patronicity sort of phase.
Mark, I think
How it was in the beginning, I don't think it's changed, is that there can be multiple projects as long as the project leads are different. So if your bike ped person is running a project, maybe the town's got a project, maybe your group has something, or gosh, I don't know, the schools are doing something. As long as the lead is different, then that would work. That is how things have operated. I don't know if Abe has made any shifts in the program.
Mark, from what I remember, the only thing you said was that it can't be affiliated with the town, can't have more than one group. So like different committees couldn't have multiple things, but different groups in town could have multiple
Yes.
going. It just couldn't be like your committee and then like Clean Energy Task Force couldn't also have a project going at the same time.
That
Right.
sounds like the best clarification. Yep.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Well, terrific. Well, Jess, thank you. That was really, really helpful. As
You're
well.
welcome. And feel free to ask questions as you get going. I'm sure there'll be more specific things that you're wondering. So let me know, and I will connect Joe and Bob to their respective people and let let you know, Mark, that question about the look back period.
Super. Thank you.
You're
You're
welcome.
certainly welcome to stay, but we'll understand if you want to go have some of your evening still.
Well, I think it's time to start dinner. So everyone have a great evening, and it was great to see you.
All right. Bye.
Thank you, Jessica.
Bye-bye.
All right, I forget what's next on the agenda. So that was the that was really helpful, I think. There really is, there's so much in this program. I mean, Sherry, I think, had really she was really in the weeds on this. I have not been nearly as much in the weeds, but you can see there's just so there's so much information, there's so many resources, as you saw, Joe.
Yeah.
And they have very clear guidance, but fortunately, we have some time. But we really, what I want to do is just pull up our list again, because given that it is early and we do have time, we want to kind of be thinking about. That's not the one I want. Where's my? Is this it? I may have closed it. Let me see if I can pull this back up. This, be nice to kind of, before it's a real rush, be kind of thinking through what, like as you were talking, Bob, about some of the stuff about housing, some of those are going to take a lot of lead time to think through, but so I think Joe, you're pretty clear on what areas I don't see your name on here, right? But you're doing the 9 stuff, you said. Right?
Yeah, and that spreadsheet that you were showing earlier. So what that's a spreadsheet you pulled down from Sustainable CT, and then you were tweaking it with.
Yeah, and this.
You
second link here. This, you have this PDF of the agenda. See if that link works for you. The second one, because that's it. It's that 2021 action list, and it's a Google sheet.
But you maintain that document?
Yeah, I downloaded this from the Sustainable CT website, and I kind of reformatted it so the first couple rows, stay, and then I added this column here. And
what about the color key there? Did you add the color key?
Nope, that was all there. That they did all. The only thing I did was the added the column, and as Jess mentioned, they've got this transition guide. So if you want to know, last year we did 3. I guess it's going this direction, 3.1. Where is it now? Now it's 4.1. So, and then what is this? I don't know.
So it seems like somebody from Sustainable CT really went through this and produced one of these, like, for each town.
I think this is actually generic for all towns.
Oh, okay.
The only thing that's specific here is to Simsbury is this column that I added.
Oh, I understand. Okay.
And that's in case anybody wants to. If you go to, it's right here under actions, download the action overview worksheet. That's what that is. But it'd be good. I'm not sure if I've done it. I don't think I've done this yet, but I can share this with people so we can all be going in here and taking a look, and kind of be. We'll add some columns for like what we're planning. Are we planning on doing this action? How many points are we going for? And then kind of make notes for ourselves so that we kind of start to by summer, maybe even we kind of start to at least know here are the actions that we think we're going to go for. All right. And here's whether, we did it before and we think we have a shot at getting credit for it again. here's how many points we think we can get. So do we think we can get silver again? I mean, this is going to be a heavy lift again. It's not, it's not like we're going to be able to coast in on what we did before, I think. So, let me share again. And Bob, just to kind of follow on what Jess was suggesting, where was it here? We go to the action list here. You're 12, right?
That's correct, I had 12.
So, and this is new, so we can't look at what other people have done. There may be some coming up soon, but I think what you want to do is go through each one of these and kind of, I mean, this looks like something that maybe we could do. Are you aware of the some of the groups, some of the people in town who are really looking at affordable housing?
So, yes, I mean, Bill Rice has put together the plan around affordable housing, and we've had detailed presentation by Bill to our EDC commission. And we participated in a townwide seminar on it. It was a Zoom meeting. So familiar with the issues, familiar with our plans. But this is specific to homelessness.
Yeah, that I was going to say that doesn't really apply to this, does
It
it?
doesn't really apply, right? So what I've done to date is, I mean, I did reach out to our Department of Social Services within town of Simsbury and say, after going through the different segments that they're talking about and saying, are you aware of this? Have you received any training on it? Or is there a formal policy in the town? So how do we think about this? How do we address this in town? And the feedback was, they are aware of the training that the state provides. There is no formal town policy on it because, quite frankly, it's not that big of an issue.
Right.
I mean, homelessness, as we don't have people wandering the streets and looking for a place to shelter every night.
Right.
Which was kind of my question of, if it's not really applicable to our town, are we do we just answer it the best we can? We get as many points as we can.
Mhm.
That's kind of my sense, but I don't want it to kind of penalize us because, we're not getting points that maybe another town's going to get because they've got a more robust homelessness plan in place where it's not really an issue for us. Therefore, we don't get it. So that was kind of where I was coming from.
Yeah, I mean, here's the 12.1 increased public awareness. Seems like maybe the one we would have a good shot at doing. And this item 3, organize one or more community conversations or forums annually with broad group of stakeholders to discuss homelessness in your community or region. So it doesn't have to be homelessness just in Simsbury, right? Folks
Correct.
meeting the goal of making homelessness rare, brief. So
I mean, I'm aware of the programs we have across, not just within our town, but across our region around food and food insecurity.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of work that Food Share does in that particular space. But homelessness is one that I think, we need to take a look at. I mean, one of the questions you got to ask yourself is is it really a problem enough that requires a formal policy and a program in place to actually address?
right.
I'm not sure it is. So that's kind of where I'm. I need to do some more research and kind of figure out how best to address this.
All right. And yeah, I think each of us needs to do this, right? We've got to go through this list and say, what do we think, Joe, for some of the composting stuff you want to do, look at those requirements, and you can maybe share some of these, get some of these information of what they've done in other places, and what do we think we can accomplish, and kind of get a plan, see if you want to be going for a community match grant. But I think what I wanted to do with this spreadsheet is just kind of get us starting to think about, what points do we, what's our plan? What are we starting with?
All right.
And what other action? I guess, if I'm not mistaken, we need to do one action in every category. It sounds like they don't need to do 12 this time around, but we're going to have to do it next time. So I think Sherry had pulled together this, was it here? I lost it again. I guess it was a Google. This thing, right? So we should maybe go through this. I mean, I know we're missing Rich, we're missing Tim, we're missing Danielle tonight, but one way or another, we need to kind of have a point person for each category, and make sure we're going to get at least one action in each, and then see if we're going to get enough to get another certification.
On the last certification, do you know how many points we went for? I know we ended up getting 225 or?
I've got that here. That's this thing, right? 425 points.
Oh, yeah, 400 was the level for silver.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we got 425, but I was just curious if we knew how many we went for. Like, did we think we had, 450 in the bucket, but some didn't get counted?
Sherry would know that. Trying to remember. There were some that we didn't get everything for, yeah. So this is, I tried to include that. So I tried to include 3 things in here. This 2021 action list is the thing we were just looking at here. But I don't think that link actually worked. The second one is the spreadsheet, which is this. And the third is the 2019 submission report, which is this. I'll try to make sure that that you have the link to each of those. So why don't we, I guess what I would say is, let's each kind of go back and spend a little more time with that action list, and start to sort of pencil out what we think is going to be achievable, what we think we can take the lead on. And at this point, it's early enough to try to sort of brainstorm and think widely that maybe we see an action on there. Maybe it's not even in the category that we're responsible for, but let's reach out to a group in town to see if they would like to basically use the Sustainable CT program to advance something they're trying to do. I know when we talked about whether we should even do Sustainable CT back in like 2018, we kind of resigned ourselves to the idea that, well, the first time that we get certified, we're probably just documenting a bunch of stuff that we've already done. Right? But as we get recertified and stay in the program, that we'd be doing new stuff. So hopefully we can just, we'll be doing some new stuff. So let's brainstorm, sort of each on our own, go through the list, and at our next meeting, let's try to try to put a little more detail in the in that spreadsheet. Start to put some points down at what we think we can do.
I remember with the first certification, I remember seeing a few news releases here and there. But what happens after that? Does the town, promote that anywhere? Whether online or with signage or.
Well, there's one of the things that the EDC is looking at is coming up with an updated marketing brochure around the town.
Mhm.
And that's one of the things I want to make sure that is included in there, is that, because we're trying to promote the town of Simsbury and all the great things about Simsbury. And one of the things we want to say is, and oh, by the way, we received the highest rating in the state around, sustainability, which if you're an outsider looking in, that's something I think you would find to be of interest. That would be a real feather in our cap. So in addition to all the other wonderful things we have going about our town, that's one thing I do want to promote.
No, I was just thinking, you see those brownstone markers, at various places, various spots in the town saying, "Welcome to Simsbury." And it seems like, I don't know, that'd be a good, just brainstorming, that'd be a good place to put a little, plaque or something that says, silver certified.
Good point.
And we do have a plaque somewhere, right? I don't know where it is. Is it in town hall somewhere? But yeah, if we're gonna put that in a brochure, Bob, we better get recertified. Otherwise, you'll have to reprint them all.
That'll put the pressure on us.
And so I'm going to reach out to Rich, Danielle. I know Tim emailed me that he was putting the kids to bed or something, so he was going to struggle. But this is a big project. There's a lot of work, and it's going to take. We're going to need, I think, the full team sort of all pulling, and everybody should sort of take in a couple actions and say, I'm going to take the lead and make sure we get these done. So why don't we just each go through that list? Feel free to reach out to me, at any time if you want to sort of brainstorm and go through, or if you can't find anything on the Sustainable CT website or something, or you want to bounce an idea, then please reach out to me. Otherwise, what I'll do is I will go through the list and sort of gather my thoughts on, which ones do we, think we have a reasonable shot at doing, or what are some ideas that are in this list that we haven't done yet, and maybe there's groups that might be interested in, taking the lead on that.
Very good.
We'll see. Yeah, it's good stuff. There's some really good. A lot of good resources there, a lot of good actions that we want to do, not just because we're looking for points, but
Mark,
right.
Quick question for you. At our last meeting, you broached the subject of potentially consolidating our commission.
Right.
And has there already been any further discussion about that?
Not anything detailed that I'm aware of. No, I think we've had some sort of, sort of water cooler conversations. I ran into Eric Wellman a week ago, and we just chatted about timing. And I think he suggested maybe the fall.
Okay.
Good time to reorganize. So yeah, I think if Jen, I don't know if you were, I think you were not at the last meeting, but the idea is that right now we've got the way this committee is structured. We're supposed to have 3 people from Clean Energy Task Force also on sustainability. So you'd be, which I don't think we certainly don't have it now, and I don't know if we ever did. You're asking 3 people to be on 2 boards, and which is just kind of it's a lot. And we're seeing other towns kind of combine these functions. So we think we may combine Clean Energy Task Force and sustainability, and
Makes
possibly even recycling as well. I think that was going to be a discussion to be had offline.
Definitely makes sense. Pool the resources.
Yeah, it's going to make for bigger. You're going to have to manage the meeting. It's going to be a lot more content, because Clean Energy Task Force has their stuff going on. But we'll just have to. One thing I want to do. There was a really good presentation recently. There was a Sierra Club event and it featured a couple of towns, just things they're doing really successfully. And one of them was Fairfield, and the chair of what they call Sustainable Fairfield spoke, a guy named Bob Wall. And they're an example. They used to have a Clean Energy Task Force, but they merged it and they're now called Sustainable Fairfield. And they're just rock stars. And he says they've actually got subcommittees of their sustainability group. So we may end up, we can't have a meeting where we're going through detailed discussions of energy and recycling and every other sustainability topic, right? So there's going to have to be people, the meetings are more reporting on stuff that's taking place. But I want to have this guy come and sort of just talk to us about how they run their meetings, and because they get so much done. They're really a strong team. So good. Well, as I say, reach out to me if you want to discuss any of these actions, and let's try to sort of flesh it out in some more detail at our next meeting, which would be May the 3rd Wednesday. So May 19th. May 19th. All right. Any other business? Great. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
All right.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Great. Well, have a
very good.
good rest of the evening, folks. And we'll
Thank
talk
you.
soon. We'll see you in a month.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.